Welcome to the channel Darkness in the Night. Tonight, I will tell you a story that took place in the northwest mountains of Vietnam, a land shrouded in mist all year round. Where cemeteries scatter across the hillsides beneath ancient mossy trees. People say that some souls there have never found peace. Back then, in a small foggy valley town, there lived two men who made their living through rather shady means. One was named Hung, known around the area as Hung the Ghost Eyes, because his eyes always glowed with a cold, eerie light, as if he could see straight through you. He had once studied under a shaman across the border, learning a few odd incantations and charms. When he returned home, he opened a small fortune-telling shop for about a year, but it barely fed him. So, he turned to theft, and he was a clever thief, only targeting rich, isolated houses on the hills. His companion was T, a short, quick-footed, but cowardly fellow. The townsfolk sometimes saw the two wandering through the fog at night, but no one knew where they went. Only the distant barking of dogs echoed from far away. One cold winter night, the fog was so thick you couldn't even see your fingertips. Hung lowered his voice, his breath forming a faint white mist. This time, it's old Madame Ba, buried just 2 days ago, the soil's still fresh. T's voice trembled, his eyes blinking rapidly under the dim flashlight. What are we gonna do with her, brother? Hung glanced around, smirked faintly, and pulled up his collar. His voice was hoarse from the chill. Just do as I say. Don't ask. They say Madame Ba was a sorceress. I want to see if that's true. The mountain wind howled, carrying the scent of damp earth and lingering incense. Two shadowy figures trudged along a narrow dirt path. The moon flickered behind thick clouds, casting pale light over a graveyard clinging to the mountainside. The old tombs rose through the fog like crouching figures watching them pass. Hung stopped before a freshly covered grave, the soil still moist. Grass not yet grown, a half-burned bundle of incense curled smoke above a rough, white-painted tombstone. Nguyen T. Ba, aged 68. A white butterfly perched silently on top, its wings trembling in the cold air. Hung stood still for a moment, then muttered something under his breath. From his pocket, he pulled a small pouch filled with gray powder and faded red strings. T shuddered at the sight and whispered, What's that stuff, brother? Hung didn't answer. He dipped his finger into the powder and drew a strange circle on the ground. His voice dropped to a whisper, almost as if talking to himself. It has to be done at the right hour, or it won't work. The air thickened, the fog grew heavier, creeping around them like cold hands. From somewhere far off came the cry of an owl, long and mournful, like someone moaning in the dark. T's grip tightened around the flashlight. He swallowed hard. Brother Hung, let's go home. I don't like this. But Hung didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the grave. The pale light reflected off his face, ashen and lifeless. After a long pause, he sighed, voice rough and low. There's nothing to fear. The dead can't harm the living, if you know what you're doing. T fell silent. The wind hissed through the stones. From somewhere close came a faint crunch, as if someone stepped on dry leaves. He swept the flashlight around but saw only fog, tiny droplets glistening on his lashes. A bead of cold sweat slid down his neck. Then a sudden gust blew, the incense flames died out. In the dense darkness, T thought he saw a shadow dart behind a bush. His voice shook. Brother, did you see that? Someone's there. Hung turned sharply, eyes like blades. Quiet, listen. They held their breath. Only the chirp of insects and the drip of water from the rocks broke the silence. Yet T felt it. Something was watching him, a gaze icy and heavy. Hung bent down, took a small cloth bag from his coat, and placed it in front of the tombstone. He chanted softly, I only borrow your belonging for a few days. When I'm done, I'll return it. Please, don't be angry. The wind rose again, slapping their faces with cold air. The flashlight wavered, its beam gliding over gray tombstones. For a split second, T thought he saw a face forming on the stone, blurred, hollow, with two deep, Empty eye sockets. He gasped and stumbled backward, slipping on the wet mound. "What's wrong with you?" Hung snapped, though his own voice quivered. "I saw someone staring at me," T stammered, panting hard. Hung paused, then gave a dry laugh. "You've got weak nerves. The newly dead still linger around. Seeing them isn't strange." The words sent chills crawling down T's spine. He dared not look up again, only bowed his head as his heartbeat thundered in his chest. Hung silently finished his ritual, brushed the dirt from his hands, and muttered, "It's done, let's go." The two men left the graveyard. The downhill path was slick with dew, their flashlight flickering over tree roots and jagged stones. In the distance, the mist still blanketed everything, leaving only the faint outlines of scattered rooftops below. Yet T couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following them. Every time he turned around, there was nothing, only fog drifting lazily past his face like cold smoke. When they reached the foot of the hill, Hung stopped and looked back. The graveyard was now just a blurry shape swallowed by the night. But amid the haze, he noticed a tiny glimmer, a faint, flickering light, like a candle burning weakly atop a grave. He squinted, unsure whether it was just his eyes, or someone truly standing there, silently watching them fade into the dark. The forest wind carried the acrid scent of fresh soil, burnt incense, and something else, metallic, like rusted iron. T pulled his coat tight, too scared to speak. Deep down, he knew something had changed that night. At the end of the trail, their silhouettes vanished into the dense mist. Up on the hill, where the newly covered graves still bore traces of damp earth, a sudden gust swept across. The coffin beneath creaked softly, as if something inside had just stirred. That night, the fog lingered. By the time the men reached the dirt road leading to the town, it was well past midnight. Dim oil lamps glowed faintly from a few stilt houses scattered in the valley, like tiny fireflies adrift in a sea of white mist. Dogs barked now and then, their cries fading into the sound of running water, a stream whispering endlessly nearby. Hung's house stood alone at the edge of the forest, its corrugated roof rusted, its wooden walls darkened with age. Every gust of wind made the whole place creak and groan. He pushed open the wooden door, it squealed on its hinges. A musty smell of smoke and old damp air filled the room. Lan, the woman living with him, sat by a small table, mending a worker's shirt under a yellow oil lamp. She looked up with a gentle smile. "You're out late again. Dinner's cold, but I saved your portion." Hung stepped inside, voice hoarse. "Yeah, had some business." Lan watched him with quiet worry. Lately, Hung had grown more withdrawn, leaving every night and returning at dawn. His clothes streaked with dirt, sometimes carrying the strange scent of incense. She never dared to ask. She only cleaned up in silence, her heart heavy with unease. T crouched in the corner, shivering as he sipped from a bowl of warm water. His hands were still caked with mud, the earthy smell clinging to his skin. Every time he remembered that misty grave path, his chest tightened and his throat went dry. Later that night, after Lan had gone to bed, Hung pulled aside the wooden floorboards in the middle of the room. Beneath them was a small hidden hatch. When he lifted it, a rush of cold air rose from below. He carefully placed the cloth pouch inside, closed the lid, and pushed the boards back into place. "It's safe here, no one will ever find it," he murmured. T nodded silently, afraid to say a word. Even after the lights went out, he could still hear the wind whistling through the gaps, making eerie sounds like someone sighing outside. He couldn't sleep. His eyes stayed wide open in the darkness. In his head, the graveyard sounds replayed, the wind, the insects, the heavy scent of incense. Every so often, he imagined footsteps circling the house, slow, heavy, stopping just beneath the wooden floor. He held his breath. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows, and the shutters rattled softly. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 faint taps on the floorboards. T jolted upright, eyes wide. He looked around, nothing. The knocking stopped. Only the wind moaned through the trees. Swallowing hard, he pulled the blanket over his head, trembling until dawn. At first light, before the sun pierced the fog, Lan stepped outside to fetch water and froze. On the ground before the porch were 3 small footprints, leading in from the forest and stopping right at the door. The earth was still wet, yet there were no prints going out. She frowned, thinking someone had wandered by at night, but the strange thing was, the prints weren't pressed deeply like human steps. They were faint, as if whoever made them barely touched the ground. By noon, T found Hung and whispered nervously, "Brother Hung, last night, I heard knocking under the floor 3 times. Hung looked up sharply, his eyes narrowing, then he gave a dry smile. "This house is old, the wind makes it creak. You're too jumpy." But T's voice shook, face pale. "In the morning I saw footprints outside. They weren't human, brother." Hung went quiet for a moment, staring toward the porch. The wind slipped through the shutters, carrying the smell of dry leaves and smoke. Then his voice dropped low. "You didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. Understand? The more you notice, the more it follows." T nodded quickly, though his fear only deepened. All day, he avoided the floor's hidden corner. Sometimes, he thought he felt a chill seeping up from beneath, threading through the cracks in the wood, raising goosebumps all over his skin. That evening, Lan came home from the sewing workshop. The moment she stepped inside, she wrinkled her nose. "Hung, there's a strange smell in here, sour and metallic." He looked up from the table, eyes flickering. "A dead rat. I already cleaned it up." But it didn't smell like any rat. It was thicker, heavier, a sickly, metallic scent that clung to the air and made her dizzy. That night, Lan couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside, rain pattered against the tin roof, and the floor creaked softly, as if someone was pacing back and forth. T lay in the outer room, eyes shut tight but mind restless. In his half-dream, he saw himself back on the foggy hill, standing before the fresh grave. From the stone, a pale hand slowly rose, pointing straight at him. He screamed, drenched in sweat, body trembling uncontrollably. He woke gasping, surrounded by darkness, just his own breath, and then, a drop of cold water hit his forehead. He reached up, the ceiling was dry. And again, that metallic, rotten scent drifted by. Shaking, he pulled the blanket over his head. In the suffocating dark, he heard it, a whisper, soft as a breeze through cracks. "Give it back to me?" The voice faded, almost unreal, yet T knew he hadn't imagined it. Sweat chilled his body. Outside, the wind screamed against the roof. And somewhere out in the fog, a dog howled long and low, carrying with it a mournful cry from the hills. The next morning, the fog still hadn't lifted. The sun hid behind a thick layer of gray clouds, drowning the valley in a dim, damp light. From somewhere afar came the weak crowing of a rooster, timid, as if even it was afraid of the silence. Lan woke early. As soon as she opened the door, she froze. Right in front of the steps were 3 small footprints, pressed clearly into the fresh, wet mud, but oddly, they didn't lead out, they led in. She bent down to look closer. The mud was still soft, still wet, even though it hadn't rained all night. A chill ran down her spine. She turned and called softly, "Hung, come look at this." No answer. She went to the bedroom, pushed open the door. Hung was still lying there, blanket up to his chest, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. She touched his shoulder and gasped. His skin was ice cold, like he'd just come in from a storm. He stirred, his voice hoarse. "What time is it?" "Almost 8. What's wrong with you? You're freezing?" He sat up slowly, eyes dull, scanning the room before sighing. "Last night, I dreamt someone was standing outside the door, just staring at me, didn't move, didn't blink." She swallowed hard and turned away. She too had dreamt of a shadow outside the porch, tall, thin, long-haired, standing still with its back to her. At first, she thought it was T playing with his phone late at night, but now she wasn't so sure. That whole day, T stayed huddled in a corner, silent. He avoided looking toward the wooden platform. Every time the wind slipped through the floorboards, he swore he heard faint scraping beneath, as if someone were clawing at the dirt. Evening fell. The sky turned purple-gray. The forest outside swallowed in mist. The air reeked of damp wood and faint incense smoke from some funeral in the village, heavy, suffocating. Hung stood on the porch, lighting a cigarette. The glow flickered across his tired face, deep shadows under his eyes. T hesitated before asking, "Brother, that bag you brought back, what's in it?" Hung shot him a sharp look. His eyes clouded. "Why do you care?" "Because ever since that night, things have been strange. I hear crying sometimes, and one night, someone knocked on the door." Hung took a deep drag, his voice rough. "Forget it. Some things, the less you know, the safer you are." T fell silent, but then, crack, a sharp sound came from inside the house. Like wood splitting. They both turned. The bedroom door burst open. A gust of wind rushed through, snuffing out the oil lamp. Lan ran out, face pale as ash. "Hung, there's knocking, under the floor." Hung stormed inside. And yes, beneath the wooden planks under the platform came 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Thud, thud, thud. As if someone below was answering. No one spoke. The wind howled outside. Rain began to patter. Hung knelt, pressed his ear to the floor. The knocking stopped. Then, thump, a heavy, muffled blow shook the boards. T screamed, stumbling backward. "I told you, something's down there, it's not human." Hung's face flushed with anger, though his hands trembled. "Shut up, don't talk nonsense." He knocked 3 times in return. Silence. Then, thud, thud, thud. The same rhythm echoed back from beneath. Lan clutched her chest, lips quivering. "Dear God, who's there?" Hung suddenly yanked the platform aside. A wave of stench hit them, thick, metallic, rotten. They gagged and covered their faces. The small hatch beneath was still closed, but on top of it was a single wet white handprint. Perfectly clear, as if freshly pressed. Hung stepped back, heart pounding. No one dared to speak. The house seemed to shrink into darkness, heavy with that foul smell. That night, Hung didn't sleep. He sat slumped against the wall, a half-burned cigarette trembling between his fingers. Outside, the rain fell harder, tapping on the roof in slow, hollow beats. Every so often, his gaze drifted to the platform, the place where that pale hand had been. Near midnight, the rain softened, replaced by faint footsteps. Slow, dragging, circling the house. Then they stopped at the door. A whisper rose, soft, distant, almost drifting from another world. "Give it back to me?" Hung froze, sweat breaking across his forehead. That voice, it was the same woman they'd seen at the graveyard. But she was dead. He leapt up, grabbed a knife, and burst onto the porch. Through the mist stood a shadow, hair hanging wet, water dripping onto the ground. He shouted and lunged, but his blade met only air and freezing fog. He stumbled, falling hard. When he looked up, he saw in the far corner of the yard, where the rain hit hardest, a wet funeral robe, draped over the fence. The very robe he swore he'd buried with her. Lan and T ran out. The 3 stood frozen. A sudden gust lifted the robe high, spinning it through the air before it dropped, landing squarely on the platform inside the house. Lan screamed. T backed against the wall, trembling. Hung gritted his teeth, voice hoarse. "No one opens it, you hear me? No matter what happens, don't open that hatch." But near dawn, when the wind had calmed, Lan rose to boil water. Hung had fallen asleep by the wall. T still lay curled up, pale and motionless. Everything seemed eerily quiet. She carried the kettle to the porch, setting it down. Then, creak, creak, a sound behind her. She turned and froze. The platform was moving, sliding slowly aside with a grinding screech. The hatch beneath was opening on its own. A rush of cold air spilled out, thick with the stench of decay. In the dim light, something glimmered below, white, slick, glistening. Then thud, a soaked, ghostly hand shot up, gripping the edge of the boards. Lan screamed. The kettle crashed to the floor. T jolted awake. Hung sprang up, but it was too late. A second hand emerged, clawing at the floorboards. From within the pit came a guttural, rasping voice. Drawn out, broken, and full of rage. "I am not at rest yet?" Hung stumbled back, face drained of blood. The door blew open, wind howled in, snuffing out the oil lamp. Darkness swallowed the room, only the sound of water dripping onto the floor remained. And beneath it, the wet, dragging noise of something crawling out of the pit, slow and heavy, like a rotting corpse clawing its way back to the world of the living. The fog was thick that morning, the air biting cold. Raindrops clung to the tin roof, sliding down in slow streaks and dripping rhythmically onto the porch. Lan sat motionless beside the teapot, eyes empty. She couldn't shake off the memory of last night, the sound of knocking beneath the floorboards. Steady and slow, like the heartbeat of the dead. At dawn, she gathered her courage and stepped outside. The soil by the steps was still wet, and from the edge of the house, stretching all the way down the small slope toward the cemetery, was a long, winding trail of mud, marked with prints that looked disturbingly like handprints clawing through the dirt. She froze, trembling. "Hung, come here, look at this, what is it?" Hung emerged from inside, his face gaunt, eyes bloodshot from a sleepless night. He stared at the trail in silence for a long moment before muttering. "Probably a stray cat. There are plenty of them around here." But his rough, shaky voice sounded more like he was trying to convince himself than her. T, sitting in the corner of the porch, shook his head, voice quivering. "I've lived here for years, never seen a cat with hand-shaped prints before." The words made Lan's skin crawl. A cold gust swept past, carrying the smell of damp earth and faint incense. For a second, she thought she heard laughter, soft, distant, ghostly, woven into the wind. That entire day, Hung barely spoke. He went to the back garden, dug a small hole, and threw something inside. Lan saw but didn't dare to ask. When he covered it up, his face was blank, only his hands trembled. Night came. The house went dark early. T lay facing the wall, eyes shut tight but sleep wouldn't come. In the silence, he heard soft footsteps, slippers dragging gently across the floor. Passing the kitchen, the sound of the door opening, then closing again, over and over, steady, rhythmic. He opened his eyes and whispered, "Hung, are you still awake?" No answer, only the faint whistling of wind through the wooden walls, almost like a whisper. He pulled the blanket over his head, heart racing. The villager's old warning echoed in his mind: if you touch what belongs to the dead, their spirit will return to claim it. For when the ground is still wet, and the soul not yet at rest, whoever disturbs them carries their curse. Around midnight, Hung stirred awake, half dreaming. He heard someone knocking, soft, deliberate, 3 times. He held his breath, listening. The knocks came again, closer this time, right beside his bed. He sat up, drenched in sweat. The door was shut, but in the corner, the curtain moved, swaying slightly. Though no wind could reach it, he stared. Behind the fabric, a faint silhouette stood still, unmoving, faceless. He lunged forward, yanked the curtain down. Nothing. Empty space. Hung stood frozen. When he turned back toward the bed, he saw his blanket, soaked through, reeking of something metallic and foul. He touched it, ice cold. Lan startled awake. "What's wrong?" Hung forced a weak laugh. "Nothing, must be a leak from the roof." But before he could finish, they both heard it, footsteps above them. Slow, heavy, pacing across the roof. The tin creaked with every step. T bolted upright. "Someone's on the roof." Lan clutched Hung's arm. He grabbed the oil lamp, lifted it toward the ceiling. The light flickered across empty metal. Then Lan gasped and pointed. "There, look." On the far wall, Illuminated by the trembling light, 5 muddy handprints began to appear, one by one, pressed from the inside of the wall. Each different in size, one large, one small, forming slowly, deliberately, as if unseen hands were pressing through from the other side. No one moved. The air was thick with the smell of burning oil and fear. No one slept that night. Hung sat on the porch, cigarette trembling between his fingers, staring blankly into the fog. Each gust of wind made him flinch. In his mind, a voice kept echoing, the same voice from that night at the graveyard. The one beneath the ground is not yet at peace. By dawn, the fog had returned, blanketing the roof in a white haze. Lan stepped outside quietly, gazing toward the hill. Through the mist, she saw a faint figure standing among the graves, its mourning robe fluttering. Head bowed low. She blinked, thinking her eyes deceived her. But when she looked again, the figure was still there, only now, it had turned its face toward her. A freezing gust swept through. Lan shivered, whispering under her breath, "Could it be, she's still here?" From afar, the wind wailed like a cry, and through the morning fog came 3 hollow knocks. Thud, 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 echoing faintly beneath the rooster's timid crow. The next morning, the fog still blanketed everything. The little village on the mountainside lay hidden beneath a thick white shroud. Voices drifted faintly through the mist, calling, echoing, fading in and out, like lost souls wandering between worlds. Lan brought out a kettle of hot water to wash her face. But the moment she turned on the tap, she screamed. The water that flowed out was muddy brown, thick as if mixed with dirt. She shut it off at once, staring in disbelief. The cold morning wind carried a faint metallic stench that made her stomach twist. Just then, someone called from outside the fence. "Lan, you're up early." It was Mrs. Nam, the neighbor. Her wrinkled face carried curiosity, eyes darting toward Lan's house. "I heard something happened last night, didn't it? Folks said they heard someone screaming. The whole village woke up. You know." Lan forced a nervous smile. "Oh, must have been a dream. Just the wind making noise, I guess." Mrs. Nam clicked her tongue, then lowered her voice. People say they saw your husband up at the cemetery 2 nights ago. Is that true?" Lan froze. A chill crept up her spine. She tried to smile again, but her lips barely moved. He probably just passed by. The graveyard's close, after all." Mrs. Nam nodded slowly, though her gaze lingered, suspicious. "Well, maybe, but you know, the old woman's grave, the one just buried, people say no one dares to go near. The ground's still wet. They say if you disturb it, the spirit follows you home." Lan bit her lip. After Mrs. Nam left, she slumped onto the porch steps, clutching her knees. The woman's words echoed in her head, "If the grave's not dry, the dead will follow." Inside, Hung lay on the wooden platform, staring blankly at the ceiling. He hadn't slept in nights. Each time he closed his eyes, the same vision returned, a woman in a funeral robe, hair dripping wet, standing outside the window, staring in, not moving, not blinking, just watching. Last night, something pressed on his chest, heavy, cold, pinning him down. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then a whisper brushed his ear, soft but icy. "Give it back to me?" He woke drenched in sweat. The room was silent, but at the foot of his bed, across the blanket, was a long, muddy streak, twisting, leading toward the floorboards. Now, even in daylight, he could still hear faint knocking somewhere beneath the house. T entered, pale-faced. "Brother, the villagers are talking. They say you dug up Madame Ba's grave." Hung shot upright. "Who said that?" "I don't know. Maybe someone saw you at the cemetery. The officials might come to check. They said so." Hung's fists clenched. He hadn't expected the rumors to spread so fast. Then he turned coldly to T. "You say nothing to anyone, or we're all dead." T nodded quickly but couldn't stop shaking. "I can't take it anymore. Brother, every night someone calls my name from outside. At first it was far away, now it's right at the door. Stop scaring me. I swear it. Once I opened the door. There were footprints, wet, muddy, but no one there. The air in the house grew heavy, suffocating. Lan stood behind the doorway, hearing everything. Her heart pounded as the pieces fell into place. She remembered how Hung came home late that night, clothes smeared with mud. When she asked, he just said he'd been out for work and nothing more. Now she knew, and fear inside her slowly turned to anger. That evening, Hung went to the back of the house, carrying a hammer and an oil lamp. He said he was sealing the pit under the floor. T tried to follow, but Hung barked, "Stay upstairs, don't go near that place." The sound of hammering echoed through the house. Clang, thud, clang. Lan sat curled in the corner, staring at the gaps in the floorboards where the light flickered from below. She heard him muttering, maybe praying. When he finally came back up, his face was pale, hands trembling. He locked the door tight and warned them both. "No one leaves this house tonight, no matter what you hear." The wind picked up again that night, howling through the cracks. The windows rattled, the lamp flickered, casting the distorted shadows of 3 people on the walls, long, twisted, shifting with every gust. Lan lay awake. Suddenly, Hung whispered from the other side of the room. "T, do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "Someone's calling my name, outside the door." They both froze. And then, it came. A voice, rough and hollow, rising from beneath the ground. "Hung, Huning." Lan clamped a hand over her mouth, trembling. The voice faded, then silence. Moments later, something heavy fell onto the roof, wet. Dull thuds, one after another, like stones soaked in water. T whispered, "It's here, it's come for us." Hung gripped a small knife, sweat dripping down his face, but he couldn't move. Just before dawn, Lan rose to light the fire. The faint morning light crept across the porch, and she froze. On the wet ground before the door, written in crooked, muddy letters, were the words, "Not at rest." She called for Hung. He rushed out, his face draining of color. T stood behind them, shaking violently. The 3 of them stared, speechless. The morning wind blew, smearing the words, but somehow, the mud seemed to sink into the earth itself, leaving behind a warning that would not fade. After that morning, when the words, "Not at rest," appeared on the ground, Hung fell completely silent. He didn't speak, didn't eat, just sat on the wooden platform, staring at the floor as if listening to something beneath it. Lan didn't dare cook. Every time she lit the stove, the smoke blew straight into her face, sharp and acrid, the smell of rotting wood. T asked to go home for a few days. His voice trembled as he spoke. I can't stay here anymore. Brother, it's too cold, even when the sun's blazing outside." Hung slowly lifted his head, his hollow eyes bloodshot. His voice came out hoarse. "If you leave, don't come back." T stared at him for a long moment, then turned away. His footsteps echoed down the narrow path, the slap of his sandals fading, yet somehow still lingering in the air. Lan watched her husband quietly. Wind slipped through the cracks of the bamboo walls, making the panels creak like tired sighs. From that day on, Hung changed. He barely spoke, barely moved, often sat motionless for hours, eyes fixed on the graveyard beyond the fence. Sometimes, in the dead of night, he would suddenly rise, open the door, and stand in the yard staring toward the cemetery. Lan was terrified, yet curiosity gnawed at her. One night, she followed him. The pale moonlight fell on Hung's staggering figure as he walked past the row of areca trees to the fence line. He stood there for a long time, the leaves whispering in the wind. Then she heard his voice, trembling, pleading, "Don't follow me, I didn't mean to." Lan froze, heart pounding. She saw him drop to his knees, hands clawing at the dirt, forehead pressed to the ground. He muttered something the wind carried away, but she caught 3 faint words, "Forgive me." That night, she couldn't sleep. When dawn came, she went to the kitchen to light the fire. But as she bent down, she noticed fresh mud prints under the cupboard, leading straight to the trapdoor. Her breath caught. She crept closer, lifted the wooden plank. Cold air rushed up, heavy with the stench of decay and something faintly metallic. She shone her lamp down. In the dim light, she could just make out sandbags, a few old planks, and a half-covered wooden box. For a split second, she saw the lid shift slightly, as if something beneath had just moved. She gasped and dropped the lamp. The flame went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Her hands shook as she slammed the trap shut. Then, silence. And in that silence, came a sound. A slow, shallow breath, coming from below. Lan backed away, gripping the post. A whisper brushed her ear, thin as wind through reeds. "Don't open it!" She screamed and collapsed. When she came to, Hung was sitting beside her, eyes bloodshot. "Who told you to touch that hatch?" he barked, grabbing her arm hard. Lan stammered, tears streaking her face. "There's someone down there?" "Shut up, there's no one." He stormed outside, slamming the door behind him. A moment later, she heard the rattle of a chain. He had locked her inside. Evening came fast. The last rays of sunlight died behind the bamboo grove. Crows called harshly from the trees. Lan sat huddled in the kitchen corner, dizzy with fear. Then, the sound began. 3 knocks. Slow, heavy. Thud, thud, thud. She bit her lip till she bled. It came again, faster this time. Thud, 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 thud. Gathering what little courage she had left, she crawled toward the trapdoor. She didn't open it, just pressed her ear to the wood. Silence. Then suddenly, a whisper, right beneath her. "Lan!" She screamed, stumbling backward. The whisper stopped. The house went still again, except for her racing heartbeat. Moments later, the outer door burst open. Hung rushed in, pale and shaking. "Who opened the hatch?" he demanded, voice raw. Lan could only shake her head, tears falling. I didn't." He sank into a chair, clutching his head. "It won't forgive me, I know it." Lan's voice broke. "What did you do, Hung?" He didn't answer, only muttered, "Some things should never be touched." That night, the moon was veiled in mist, dim and swollen. The entire village slept soundly, except for their house, where the knocking continued beneath the floor. Thud, thud, thud. Steady, patient, like something waiting to be released. Lan sat motionless, staring at the patch of moonlight spilling across the floor. And there, in that pale beam, a fresh handprint slowly appeared, pressed deep into the mud. After the night when the handprint appeared on the floor, Lan couldn't bear to stay in the house alone. She went to stay with Aunt Nam, an elderly woman who lived near the edge of the forest. When Lan told her what had happened, the old woman sighed deeply. "Child, in this land, there are things you must never disturb. If the dead aren't honored properly, their spirits will never rest." Lan bowed her head, tears streaming down her face. She told Aunt Nam everything, except the part about Hung hiding something in the cellar. The old woman's sunken eyes darkened. She spoke slowly. "Last night, the fog was thick, and I heard someone crying near the graveyard. At first, I thought it was just the wind. But no, it was clear, a woman's voice, calling someone named Hung." Lan's blood ran cold. She begged to stay for the night. Outside, the mountain wind howled endlessly. The whole village sank beneath a blanket of fog, dense, heavy, like a giant white shroud. Far away, on the hillside cemetery, people whispered that Madame Ba's grave had cracked open. The earth around it split as though something had pushed from within. Rumors spread quickly. Some villagers swore they heard the tap of a walking stick echoing through the mist. Others claimed to see trails of disturbed soil winding down the path. The village children, herding buffaloes nearby, swore on their lives they saw someone sitting beside the grave, long hair, tattered brown clothes, unmoving. The news reached Hung. That morning, he sat at the tea house at the edge of the village. smoking silently. When someone retold the story, his hand trembled. The cigarette slipped from his fingers. The woman selling tea frowned. "What's wrong, Hung? You look pale." He forced a smile. "Nothing, just haven't slept." But as he turned to leave, his eyes darted toward the cemetery, still veiled in fog like a curtain that hid something watching back. By late afternoon, Lan returned home to gather a few things. The moment she stepped through the doorway, the stench of mildew hit her. The cold inside was unnatural, the kind that seeps into your bones. Dust coated the furniture. It was clear Hung hadn't cleaned or lit a fire for days. She called softly, "Hung, are you home?" No answer. She took a few hesitant steps, then stopped. A whisper came from the next room, low, drawn out, like someone reciting a prayer. Lan pushed the door open just enough to see inside. Hung sat cross-legged on the floor. Before him lay a bowl of water and a half-burned stick of incense. His sunken eyes stared blankly ahead as he muttered under his breath. Lan's voice trembled. "Hung, what are you doing?" He looked up slowly, his lips barely moving. "I'm begging for forgiveness." She stepped back, afraid to ask more. Hung rose, moving as if in a trance. As he passed her, he stopped, inhaled sharply, and said in a hollow voice, "Lan, if someone calls your name, don't answer." Then he walked out into the yard and disappeared into the fog. That night, Lan couldn't sleep. The wind hissed through the cracks. Dogs barked in bursts, and somewhere far away came the clack, clack, clack of a cane striking the ground, slow, steady, coming closer. Lan sat upright, heart hammering. She held her breath. The steps grew louder, heavier, and then stopped right outside the porch. A pause. Then, a whisper, thin as mist. "Lan." She clutched her blanket tighter, trembling, remembering Hung's warning. She stayed silent. But the voice came again, clearer this time, right beside her ear. "Lan, open the door for me." Tears welled in her eyes. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Then came the knocking, 3 deliberate knocks. Thud, thud, thud. The air filled with the smell of damp soil, raw, metallic. She could feel the cold radiating through the door. Slowly, she peered through a crack in the wood, but outside was only fog. Thick and white, covering everything. No person, no shadow, nothing. The next morning, Lan ran to tell Aunt Nam. The old woman frowned, voice grave. "The spirit called your name. You were lucky not to answer. Once a spirit remembers your voice, it'll never let go." "What should I do then, Auntie?" Lan stammered. "Tell Hung to stop. Whatever he took from the dead, he must return it. You can't keep the underworld's things in a living house." Lan nodded, her heart pounding with dread. She hurried back to find Hung, but the house was empty. On the table lay a single torn piece of paper, the handwriting shaky and uneven. "Tonight, I'm going to the hill. I must bury it myself. If I don't come back, don't look for me." A gust of wind swept through from the forest, fluttering the paper to the floor. It landed beside a fresh trail of mud, leading straight to the cellar door. That night, the fog on the hill was so thick that if you stretched your hand in front of your face, you couldn't even see your fingertips. The entire hillside seemed swallowed by a pale white sea. The only sounds were the faint chirping of crickets and the soft drip of dew falling from the leaves. Hung carried a small shovel and a bundle wrapped tightly in black cloth, clutching it close to his chest. He moved slowly, eyes darting around as if afraid someone might be following. Every step he took made a wet, squelching sound, the ground still soaked from the night's mist. When he neared the cemetery, he stopped. Through the fog, the tombs rose like bent shadows, half buried in the white haze. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and burnt incense. A lone owl flew past, screeching sharply, the sound slicing through the silence. Hung flinched. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "Just bury it back, then it'll be over," he whispered shakily. He He found Madame Ba's grave easily. It looked strange. Only days ago it had been sealed tight. Yet now a long crack split across the mound, as if something inside had tried to push its way out. Moss clung to the edges, and a sour, earthy stench seeped from the wet soil. Hung knelt, hands trembling. He took out an incense stick, struck a match. The flame burned weakly, flickering low, as though unwilling to light. He bowed and murmured, I brought it back. Please, don't follow me anymore. I was foolish. A gust of wind blew past. The incense died instantly. The fog thickened, wrapping around him like cold breath. Hung swallowed hard, gripping the shovel tighter. He began to dig. The soft thup-thup of metal hitting soil mixed with his heavy breathing. After only a few strikes, the ground felt loose, too loose, as if someone had already disturbed it. He paused, wiped the sweat from his face, then slowly placed the wrapped bundle into the hole. Just then, he heard something, soft rustling behind him. He spun around, but there was nothing, only endless fog. His voice cracked. Who's there? No reply, only the faint whistle of the wind weaving through the pines. He turned back, ready to cover the hole, and froze. Right at the edge of the pit was a single footprint. Bare, small, wet, too small to be a man's. Hung's breath caught in his throat. From somewhere deep in the mist came a quiet cough, raspy, hoarse, like that of an old woman. He stumbled backward. Who's there? Silence. Then, a faint, familiar smell reached him, the mix of incense and old herbal medicine. A scent he remembered clearly from Madame Ba's house long ago. And then a voice drifted through the fog, slow, drawn out, unmistakable. Give it back? Hung's hands shook violently. The shovel fell from his grasp. He dropped to his knees, shouting in terror. I brought it back. I'm returning it. Everything went still. The wind stopped. Even the insects went silent. He felt a cold breath brush the back of his neck, the kind of chill that seeps into the bones. Someone, or something, was standing right behind him. He dared to turn, but saw only the fog, though within it, a faint shadow loomed, darker than the rest. It didn't move, yet the strange scent grew stronger, filling the air around him. Please, forgive me? He stammered, voice breaking. A sharp crack rang out, like a twig snapping. Then, from the earth itself, came a long, low exhale, cold as ice. Hung's body trembled violently. Desperate, he grabbed a handful of dirt and shoveled it over the black cloth. The moment the bundle disappeared beneath the soil, a strong gust of wind roared through the hill. The ground shook, dust and mud sprayed over him. And beneath that howling wind, faint, almost buried under it, came a chilling sound. A laugh. Low, rasping, like it came from under the earth. Hung screamed, stumbling to his feet. He left the shovel, bolting down the slope. The fog clung to him. The wet ground made him slip again and again. But he didn't stop running. Behind him, there came a sound, slow, rhythmic. Thud, thud, thud. As if someone were following, tapping a walking stick on the ground. Halfway down, he looked back. Through the fog, at the top of the hill, stood a figure, draped in a brown robe, motionless. The wind blew back her headscarf, revealing long, dripping hair. Hung turned and ran faster, not daring to look again. By the time he reached home, dawn was breaking. Lan opened the door and gasped. Hung stood there pale and soaked. Shaking. He said nothing, only collapsed into a chair, staring blankly ahead. She rushed over. Did you bury it? He nodded faintly but didn't speak. Then, something slipped from his pocket, a small piece of black cloth. Still damp. Lan froze. Hung, did you really bury it? He lifted his head slowly. His lips moved, eyes wide and empty. I buried it, but I think it didn't leave. A gust of wind swept through the yard, creaking the door open. From the fog outside, a faint voice called his name. Drawn out, echoing, and disappeared into the wind. That night, the house grew so quiet it was terrifying. No barking dogs, no whispering wind, only a cold stillness that seeped through the cracks, wrapping the house in a suffocating chill. Lan sat on the wooden platform, clutching a pillow tight to her chest. Eyes wide open, her breath came in heavy, shallow bursts, each exhale thick with fear. Hung lay on the floor, face pale as ash, muttering something she couldn't make out. Every so often, he would glance over his shoulder, as if sensing someone standing right behind him. Sweat dripped down his temples. In his trembling hands, he still clutched that same black cloth, damp and heavy. Lan barely dared to breathe. She remembered the muddy footprints, the handprints on the floor, the knocking beneath the boards, and Aunt Nam's warning echoing in her head. Never touch what belongs to the dead. Once you do, they'll follow you forever. After a long silence, the soft shuffle of Hung's slippers broke the stillness. He moved toward the kitchen, slowly, dragging his feet. He poured himself a glass of water, but his hands shook so violently that the water splashed onto the floor. Lan's voice trembled. "Please, drink it, Hung. Stop thinking about it." He looked at her, sunken eyes. Voice hoarse. "I can't control myself anymore." Outside, the wind began to wail. The door creaked. Suddenly, a strong earthy smell flooded the room, a mixture of damp soil and burnt incense. Lan gagged, the stench thick and sour. In the dim light, she saw it, fresh trails of red clay stretching from the living room all the way to the cellar door. She gasped. "Hung, what's down there?" He spun around, eyes wide, voice shaking. "Nothing, there's nothing." But she saw it clearly, the flicker of fear in his eyes as they darted toward the cellar. Night deepened. Lan lay rigid on the platform, afraid to close her eyes. The wind hissed through the cracks, insects droned outside. Every sound felt alive, crawling under her skin. Then it came, a knock from below. Soft at first. Thud, thud, thud. Then faster, louder, like the heartbeat of someone running in terror. Lan covered her face, trembling uncontrollably. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. Her chest felt frozen solid. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, a voice. Thin, hoarse, whispering from beneath the floor. Hung. Hung stiffened, his entire body locking in place. Lan's voice cracked. "Hung, did you hear that?" He stood up slowly, walking toward the cellar, his eyes wide with terror. His hand clenched the black cloth tighter. I know, she's not at rest." Lan's lips quivered. "Then what do we do now?" Hung shook his head, his voice hollow. "I don't know, only that we must stay silent, or else." He paused, eyes drifting toward the ceiling, voice barely more than a breath. "Once they follow you, no one can save you." At that moment, a violent gust howled through the porch, sending the curtain flapping wildly. Lan's eyes widened. Hung's shadow stretched across the floor, long, distorted, and it wasn't alone. It looked as if something unseen was pulling it back. Then, on the wall, red smears appeared. 5 handprints, slick and wet, pressed deep into the plaster before fading into the cold air. Lan screamed, stumbling backward against the wall. Hung grabbed his head, shaking uncontrollably. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. Lan stared at him, voice trembling. "Hung, are you sure it's not still here with us?" He didn't answer. He simply sank to the floor, gripping his head in both hands, staring blankly at the ceiling. But in the darkness, Lan could hear it. Another breath. Slow, steady, not his. As if someone else was breathing right beside him. That night, the house was no longer quiet. The fog crept in through the windows, mingling with the wind's low moans, the whisper of insects, and the faint sound of fingers brushing up from beneath the floor. Until it felt as though the entire house had come alive, breathing alongside Hung and Lan. Thick fog blanketed the village. People whispered in hushed voices. Anyone who passed by the hill cemetery claimed to have seen strange lights, heard rhythmic thuds, or caught a faint, earthy, pungent smell lingering in the air. Lan grew increasingly terrified. She no longer dared stay in the house alone. She went to Aunt Nam's home to spend the night, her heart heavy and restless. The old woman spoke quietly, her tone grave. "Child, when the dead refuse to forgive, they cling to the living forever. Then, can Hung still be saved?" Lan's voice trembled. "Yes, if there's still remorse in his heart, and he truly returns what he took." But Hung was no longer the same. Every night he wandered the house sleepless, eyes hollow, clutching the black cloth with shaking hands. The wind's howl outside mingled with his quiet sighs, a sound so haunting Lan could no longer sleep. One night, she followed him silently into the yard. He stood still, staring toward the hill, his voice breaking. I have to do something, or else." Lan grasped his hand, her eyes steady despite the fear. "You have to return it. If you don't, we'll never be free." Hung looked at her, tears glinting in his eyes. "I'm scared, but I'll do it." That night, the two of them set out for the cemetery. The fog curled around their bodies like pale smoke. The air was thick with the smell of wet soil. The chirping of insects mixed with the hollow wail of the mountain wind. Each step up the hill was heavy, deliberate, as if the mountain itself was watching. Hung knelt before Madame Ba's grave. He opened the black cloth. Inside was a severed hand, dried with salt, stiff and cold as stone. He placed it gently on the mound, his voice shaking as he whispered, "Please forgive me, take back your hand, and leave us be." A sudden gust swept over the hill. The air turned icy, leaves rustled violently. Then, a whisper drifted through the fog, soft, eerie, like the echo of breath on glass. "At peace?" Hung froze. For a brief second, the hand vanished, as if it had been pulled into the soil. The mound rose slightly, as though some unseen force had covered it from within. Lan exhaled, placing her hand on his shoulder. "It's over now." He nodded weakly, though fear still shimmered in his eyes. By morning, the fog had lifted. The little village seemed calm again, birds sang, the sunlight broke through. But Lan knew, something still lingered on that hill. T had fled the town without a word, and she herself cut all ties with Hung. Because deep down, she felt it, some debts between the living and the dead are never truly repaid. Hung returned home, staring at the empty cellar. Relief washed over him, but it was heavy. Uneasy relief. He muttered under his breath, voice hoarse, "Never again, never touch what belongs to the dead." But just as he stepped into the yard, from the fog on the hill came a rasping laugh, long, dragging, echoing through the mist. Hung froze. His pulse raced. The laugh had no body, no shape, yet it told him clearly, Madame Ba had not forgiven him. He bowed his head, regret flooding his chest. The house was silent now, stripped of warmth, filled only with the hum of wind in his hammering heart. He knew he had paid dearly for his greed, and the lesson would follow him all his life. Lan watched from afar and sighed. She knew their love had died that haunted night. T had fled, Lan stayed behind, and Hung was left alone, to face the terror he had brought upon himself. The hill returned to silence. The fog thinned, though that strange earthy scent lingered in the air. But the truth remained, carved deep into their souls. No one can steal from the dead and walk away unscathed. And somewhere in the distance, that same hoarse laugh echoed again. A reminder that some spirits will never rest. Hung repented too late. Lan walked away. T disappeared. The graveyard stayed silent, yet the shadows still lingered. And so, the story, the coffin that never closed, comes to an end. The fear, the remorse, still drift through the mist and the quiet cemetery. Would you dare step outside tonight, when fog covers every corner of the earth? If you'd like to hear more chilling ghost stories, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, so you'll never miss another whisper from the dark. We'll see you again in the next story, where light is rare, but shadows are always near. Disclaimer: this video is a fictional horror story, created for entertainment purposes to evoke suspense and mystery. We do not promote superstition or encourage any dangerous or real-life acts described in the story. Any resemblance to real people, places, or events is purely coincidental. Thank you for watching and supporting Bong Toi Trong Dem, Darkness Never Sleeps.